I got one question for you Closing Shift fans. Are you ready? Because it's episode number 24. Biatch.
24.
I just thought of an episode number funnier than 24. 25. Welcome back to Closing Shift. I am one of your hosts, and the other host is the other person. Our names are Mike and Sully. We are your hosts this week in particular because the hosts Mia and Emmy are sick and out. They both have COVID and cancer, and they're dying. But that's okay, because Mike and Sully are here to Wazowski your ears.
Yeah, welcome to the scare floor.
Welcome to the scare. That, if there was, for some reason, a Monsters, Inc. Central podcast, that would be a great name for it. Anyway, yes, of course, for real. Welcome back to Closing Shift. I'm Emmy, that's Mia. We have got great events going on in the wrestling world right now, and we thankfully have got coverage and reviews of the Money in the Bank PLE that just happened last week. It is very exciting times right now. The ending match, main event, unfortunately was a little underwhelming, but every other match had some crazy shit going on, so it's going to be fun to talk about. We are almost arguably just a wrestling podcast at this point, but...
True.
I will also, real quick, mark that I am halfway through the book I'm currently reading now. I've surpassed halfway. Again, reading Three Keys, the sequel to Front Desk by Kelly Yang. If you haven't been listening to the podcast before this episode, great book series. The Front Desk series by Kelly Yang. Great series. I plan to read, as I have also stated before. I'm sorry for regular listeners who have to hear this every week because I always talk about it. I'm about to start reading the collected poems of Robert Frost after this, and then starting the Throne of Glass series. And still love books, for sure. And what's going on in, since this podcast is going to be very wrestling-centric, what is going on in your life besides that?
I'll tell you what's going on. I've been, similar update to what you've got. I've been watching more of The Boys. I have just begun? No, we can't say begun, that's violent. I've just began season 4 of The Boys. I've finished all the other seasons. I binged through them. Been very much enjoying it. So now I'm starting the current season. I'm getting up to date on it.
Yes, and I still have yet to start The Boys, but I want to. I have Prime for the first time in a while, so.
I don't want to give any spoilers of anything. I don't want to say anything too specific, like give away details. But I will say that my opinion of The Boys has been declining a bit through the end of season 3 and into now the beginning of season 4. Like, I feel like the other seasons were always very good about, if they had some kind of social commentary that they wanted to make, they found a way to make a fictional analogy for that thing. Like, there's a news reporter in the show that's basically a one-to-one of Tucker Carlson.
Oh, that's good.
If they want to do like a form of social commentary, usually it's in a form of a kind of parody, where they don't outright say the thing, but you still know what they're talking about because they go very strong in those themes. But through the end of season 3, now into season 4, it seems that it is getting kind of lazier with the commentary that they try to make. Like, it's gone from more subtle ways of like, oh, here's a way of expressing the views of the creators of this show and pointing out things that we think are bad without directly just pointing a finger at it and saying, look, bad thing. And that's kind of what they're doing now, is just like they straight up made a reference to like Jeffrey Epstein killing himself in prison.
Awesome.
And like they directly are fucking quoting things like happening in real life, like politically. Even like figures, quotes, important things. It's losing a lot of nuance, and it feels very ham-fisted right now. And I hope they kind of shake out of that, because it's kind of uncomfortable when it's like, yeah, I get that like these are bad people. They're saying bad things in the show, but they don't have to be a one-to-one copy of the real life thing happening. You don't have to just say what the real life people are saying. You can say your own thing that expresses the same purpose.
You can have fiction in your fictional world.
Yeah, it's like it's losing the fiction in what it's trying to say. It's kind of weird.
It is. What's like the term? Hold on. Let me like look up this term so I can say this.
Bimbofication.
Probably. No. It's I have to like Google the opposite of the word I'm thinking of.
God, this jazz track that we are listening to today, as opposed to the ones that we've been listening to for the last few episodes, this one is a lot more upbeat. I get like Mario Kart music almost.
Yeah, this is a generally more upbeat playlist, I think. I usually put on like jazz in the background or something like that. And this is, what is this one? Got to tab into Spoofy real quick to check. Oh yeah, smooth jazz chill, so it's a little more like jazzy, you know?
I think, yeah, the other ones we've been listening to is called like jazz in the background.
Yeah, or like coffee table jazz, like meant to be relaxing.
Yeah.
Or jazz in the morning.
I like to have a jazz in the morning. Gets you, wakes you right up.
I guess like, what I was gonna say is that The Boys is like unraveling and illuminating the lines between fiction and reality by making it so realistically parody that it's just like not even fun anymore.
Yeah, it like that's one of the one of the more fun things of watching through seasons 1 through 3 is that if you are somebody who keeps up with current events and is politically aware, then you are able to catch the themes that happen in the show. There's a lot of people that watch the show and they don't understand that you're not supposed to side with Homelander. Of course, like you can if you want to, if that's what your belief system is, you can, but the intention of the show is not to idolize Homelander.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, people who are not very politically aware and are not very up to date on these things aren't going to catch the themes. And so that was like one of the nice things going from season 1 to 3. It's like, oh, I understand what's happening here. I understand the nuance. I know what they're trying to say. I know why they're trying to say it. I understand the purpose that it serves. But now they just outright quote things. And it's like, there's no nuance to it. And the people who have been missing the themes from season 1 to 3 are now noticing the themes since they're so blatant. And they're like, hey, what the fuck? They've been saying shit about us the whole time.
Oh, is that when people were like freaking out recently? Like, wait a second,
they're making fun of us. But that's like that's one of the reasons why I don't really like what's starting to happen here. Is it's like I don't want it to be like outright calling people out and pointing a finger.
Just thinking like, this used to be like our thing, and I told everybody.
Yeah, it's like the thing is, I want people to see a piece of media and be able to engage with it without immediately being adverse to its themes. Because the moment that somebody feels insulted, they're just going to turn it off and not listen to anything it has to say. And that's why I appreciated it actually having nuance. I guess that's all I have to say on The Boys. I am still enjoying it. I do still intend to finish out season 4.
Yeah, that's all I got to say.
You've heard of Boomison Yamison, right?
It's the idea that if a Homelander lives 1,000 years in the sea and then 1,000 years in the dragons, he will become a Superman. Yeah, not on any shows recently. Well, actually, that's not true. I'm rewatching Glitter Force. If you are like a 5-year-old girl or you just love girly things, I would recommend. Well, first of all, if you're a 5-year-old girl, go away. Like,
what are you doing here?
You should not be here. You shouldn't even have access to like technology that you can listen to this. But anyway, it's this anime for it's like an anime made for like girls. It's catered to young girls. It's very cutesy. It's like over the top cutesy. It's a comfort show for me called Glitter Force. It's a Netflix show, and I've been watching it literally since I was 17 for the last 7 years. Except that I just didn't finish it when I was 17. I think I got through the first season, but I'm rewatching it now because I haven't seen it in 7 years. And then I thought about it, and it's just like, it makes me so happy every time I watch an episode. It's just like the most simple life lessons and the most simple ways to learn them while also having magical girls fight monsters. It's so fun, and it's like an anime without like blood or like crazy action. It's just cute, and like everything about it is sparkly and glittery. So, if you're a super girly girl like me, go watch it.
Shows like that are the backbone of our society.
It's just so cute. I freaking love everything about it.
I got it confused for a moment when you first brought it up with the other show. What was it called? Like Q Force, I think.
I don't know.
That was a show that was, I guess it came out a year, 2 years maybe. And it was just the fucking worst. It's just like, it's one of those like, quote unquote adult cartoons or cartoons for adults. like
Right.
Rick
One
and
of those
Morty and
Rick
shit.
and Morty's.
It was like one of those, but it was just so blatantly stereotypically gay. Like everything about it was just like the most annoying queer stereotypes all jammed into one show.
It's fun stuff.
It was like from what I heard, it's like not actually the worst show when you actually watch it. It's like some people do enjoy it, but my God, it just like from the outset, from the premise, like the first trailer for it is just like, oh my God, this is gonna set us back 10 years.
That is unfortunate. I have yet to see a piece of media in a while that I feel like that about. I've been kind of relying mostly in terms of TV on like wrestling and somewhat on YouTube. Like we were just talking about a little bit earlier that Markiplier's back, so watching his videos and stuff because he's been making a comeback as just a gaming YouTuber and nothing else. I also have been watching Distractable like a lot recently. I've been watching episodes I've never seen and then just keeping up with the new ones. And it's been very entertaining. There was an episode they did recently on Distractable where Bob, it was like the funniest thing I've ever seen. Bob was the host and he asked Mark and Wade like 20 trivia questions and then asked them the questions again in a different order. And it just was so crazy how stupid that can make a person look. If you just like ask them trivia questions they barely know and get them to think that hard and then not tell them but ask them the questions again out of order. And he just kept, the whole episode he kept asking them all the questions until they answered them all. Until somebody answered them all.
That's awesome.
It was an amazing bit. Like if we ever had a guest, I'd definitely write that down, use that later.
They're funny boys. I was thinking earlier we were watching a promo, or I guess whatever you call it, when those men start talking in the ring and then they start punching on each other.
Wrestling.
Is that what you call it?
I guess.
We were watching that thing where Triple H got fired. This being like 14 years ago, Triple H got fired from Raw, and like everybody was on strike, so there was no commentators booth. And so there was just like the 3 chairs there, and I was like, that would be the perfect place for a Distractable podcast, or to have Mark, Wade, and Bob commentate a match.
Dude, I would kill to see that. That'd be awesome.
That's what one of the sadder things. People were so convinced when Creator Clash 2 happened, because Mark was doing like a pre-show.
Right.
People were convinced that he was going to be commentating the match, and he did not.
Yeah, unfortunate. Particularly, like, I definitely think if I ever had the opportunity to do anything in wrestling, I would think it would be some kind of vocal role, commentating, announcing something.
You know, there's probably like a local wrestling thing that you can just find in your city and just be like, hey, you need a commentator? You'd be like, yeah.
That would be pretty fun. That's why, honestly, I like the platform of commentating over wrestling as like a creator, because you can just do that on your own platform. I wish there was like a safe way to like do that. Like I wish we could have a Patreon where we like show the wrestling and commentate over it and upload those for people to watch if they pay.
I don't know why you're struggling to find a safe way. I mean, there's plenty of them out here in Arizona.
Good one.
A lot of safe ways.
It's not a lot out here, I don't think.
We did come to the conclusion last night. We finally admitted to ourselves that we are a wrestling podcast.
Yeah, I mean, basically, we're like a wrestling podcast with some side dishes to go along with it, like other media we consume besides wrestling from time to time. I
think you said something like, "Oh yeah, all the wrestling news outlets are going to be talking about this," and I was like, "You mean us?"
Yeah, I was talking about how wrestling news outlets were thriving right now, and then it was like, so just us.
Should we get into the reason why they're thriving? Get to the main meat and potatoes of today?
Yes, if you guys would like to hear, stick around, because now we will be talking about the show.
And we, as a premier wrestling podcast, we have done our journalistic duty with greatest journalistic integrity, finding the best, most reliable sources to discuss the Money in the Bank event that happened last night for us, about a week ago for you. And those sources are, of course, ourselves.
Yep. Just many references to go off of, especially like our eyes and stuff.
That's a nice argument, Senator. Mind backing it up with a source? My source is that I made it the fuck up.
So here's what happened. Money in the Bank 2024. Let's generally talk about the events of it while I pull up the matches and results just to be sure in my memory. It was a crazy event. A lot of surprises, like Hunter Hearst Levesque promised. The post-show was very funny. We, of course, had the...
The pre-show was very funny.
The pre-show was very funny. It was a pretty entertaining thing in general. Yeah, the pre-show started off with many technological errors on WWE's part. I don't even know how, but they just kept fucking it up.
The most egregious being that, like, the audio was just messed up when they were trying to play promo reels and, like, advertisements. So, like, they were showing this promo that they played later, and it was, like, this kind of emotional thing, like, this very hype thing, and then an emotional thing. But the entire time, the audio over it was, half of the time, it was silence, and then the latter half of it was, make sure to stop in at the store and get whatever it is that you want to get while we're here at Money in the Bank. Like, just running like a generic, like, merch advertisement.
Oh, yeah. Over a video of, like, Seth Rollins crying.
Yeah. It looked like a Menards ad, or, like, sounded like a Menards ad while playing over WWE.
It was very funny.
After they played that, they cut away to the pre-show commentators, which was, what's it, Wade something? Barrett?
Wade Barrett, Big E, and I can't remember the other woman's name.
The other one was Drew McIntyre.
Right.
They cut back to them, and the music was just egregiously loud over them. You could not hear what Big E was saying, and they were having a good fun time.
Yeah, it was like a Sonic Adventure DX cutscene. Music was so fucking loud, you just couldn't hear anything.
I don't know how many people got fired for last night, but it's at least one.
It's likely someone lost their job yesterday.
Brad, what you gonna do? Job's gone.
They also started the show off with singing the American National Anthem. This event, of course, taking place in Toronto, Canada. And it was kind of funny because we were like, why the fuck are they doing the American National Anthem in Canada? And then they did Oh Canada, and it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and they had like a, you know, this glorious backing track for the American National Anthem, but there was no backing track for the Canadian National Anthem, so it just sounded more pathetic in comparison.
Right.
But they did start strong. We were immediately pretty hype when it began, because the first match of the night was the men's Money in the Bank. And we knew immediately, with it being the men's Money in the Bank, right at the start, that meant that Drew McIntyre, if he won, was very likely to cash in that night.
Because he said he would.
He did. He made that threat. It seemed that the threats that Drew McIntyre has been making did have people very much off their not off guard, but definitely off their pace.
Right.
How would you rate that first match? What did you think of it?
The men's Money in the Bank?
Yeah.
I would rate it pretty high. It was a good match overall. It was impressive. I think each guy in the match contributed pretty well to their part. I think for Carmelo Hayes, it being his first like PLA on the main roster, it was a good job by him. I remember when he, I think Andrade slammed him into a ladder.
Yep.
And you could see the afterlife in Carmelo's eyes. It was very funny. Jackie Redmond is that girl's name, by the way. It took me scrubbing through so much footage to find that. Wade Barrett, Big E, and Jackie Redmond. And Michael Cole started with Big E and Wade at the beginning, and then he had to go like get ready to be in the show. It was also fun seeing Big E do his New Day announcement like he hadn't done in a while. That was cool. Yeah, so it was LA Knight, Jey Uso, Drew McIntyre, Andrade, Carmelo Hayes, and Chad Gable. Yeah, pretty impressive performance. I think it was definitely objectively storyline correct that Drew won. It's been really fun doing the yeah versus the yeet thing with Jey and LA Knight. I think those two just have a great rivalry to set up with their two 4-letter Y word phrases.
Yeah, definitely catches on a lot better than no yeet.
No yeet is that's how you know one part of the family made it, when the other family's catchphrase is the anti-catchphrase of the other. But yeah, so Drew McIntyre won Money in the Bank, and we can get to his cash-in later, but next in the lineup was the Intercontinental Championship match between Sami Zayn and Braun Breaker.
I didn't get to say anything about the Money in the Bank.
My apologies. Please speak on men's Money in the Bank.
I thought it was great that before the match, they showed a reel of different wrestlers from previous Money in the Bank or other ladder matches showing how horribly injured they got and how botched their moves were on the ladders. They were like, oh, yeah, so you see there, I hit the ladder, and it's just, I felt every rib in my body felt like it was breaking, like every bone.
Oh, right. They had wrestlers reacting to their ladder moments, yeah.
Yeah, they were like showing them, and they were like, yeah, that hurt. I landed wrong on that. That was bad. That could have been real bad. And it's like, oh, yeah, that was rough. They showed that before the match. And then in the match, we saw, like, identical things happen where it's like, oh, dear God. There were, like, so many stressful moments where it's like somebody looked like they were... Like, the Michael Cole kept saying, like, oh, my God, they're going through the ladder. But the ladders never broke. They kept bouncing off of the ladders. And which just looked horrible. Everybody was just... Every single injury that happened in that match was very ladder-related and looked bad. I hope in the future maybe these ladders they find some way of like making these safer, because it really seemed that like there was not a single person who was not in one way or another victimized by a ladder in an unintentional way during any of the Money in the Bank matches. Final thought on the men's Money in the Bank: secret MVP, unexpected MVP, Chad Gable.
Chad Gable murdered the competition for losing. And I wasn't aware because I've not been paying attention to Chad Gable, but he is apparently being hunted down by the Wyatt Six right now. Six. Sorry, I don't know why I said sex.
Wyatt Six.
The Wyatt Six. Yeah, apparently he's got something going on with them right now. I don't know why. I do actually also have a personal life update I forgot about, but let's finish talking about the first match at least. The bouncing, you shouldn't be bouncing off a ladder like a trampoline when you hit it. And it's mainly because the ropes are attached to it. Or it's like balancing on the ropes, so it kind of just like has that elasticity. But it's fucking crazy to watch somebody get slammed into a ladder and then bounce a couple feet in the air and then hit the ground again.
Yeah,
it's a little brutal. Because the thing is, like, as much as it may not seem like it from the footage last night, those ladders and tables are all designed to break when wrestlers hit them that hard, because it breaks their fall. That's why they can go through those tables and ladders so often, is because they're designed to break so it breaks their fall. Because, believe me, it's a lot more comfortable to go through a ladder and through a table than it is to hit it and it not break.
Yeah, it's like the crumple zone on your car, or like what I was saying about helmets when we were talking about Gordon Ramsay a couple weeks ago. That's like, if a good helmet is one that is going to crumple and break, not one that's going to just bounce off, because then all that force goes in your skull. Very similar principle.
Right. And it's a damn shame that at least 2 of those wrestlers are benched for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
Nah, but it's just, I mean, it's entertaining. It's one of the best PLEs of the year. It's awesome.
It was certainly one for the history books.
Yeah, for sure. And yes, of course, Drew McIntyre won. I believed with my entire being ever since like he came back, because he said he quit and then he beat up CM Punk like the next episode of SmackDown the same week. And as soon as I found out he was in the Money in the Bank match, I immediately started theorizing about how his cash-in was going to go, because I knew that he was going to win probably.
Yeah, I mean, he had to.
It just made the most sense. Like, they were the crowd favorites, but like, it just made the most sense objectively. Like, I've been a wrestling fan for 16 years. I kind of know how some of these things go. I have good judgment on it, at least.
It's a good day for judgment.
It's a new day. Yes, it is. And it's also, it's a lot more fun for me too, because I have like this like wrestling history of knowledge. And I know a lot about, it's not like the 16 years I've been a fan are the only things I know about. I also know the history from before I was a fan and stuff. But it's awesome. I fucking love wrestling. Our new catchphrase for the podcast should just be, wrestling is more fun than the things you like, because we say it every time.
True. And we'll just take that from John Oliver, like John Oliver takes ovens from a Red Lobster.
Right. That also happened recently. We can talk about that later. Yeah. Maybe. But anyway, real quick personal life update I wanted to give. I have had to use like a tall stand fan for a while, like one of the cylindrical tall ones. I've had to use that for like over a year because my ceiling fan was broken and the remote for it died anyway. The fan itself wasn't necessarily broken, but the bottom half of it that has like the light in it and the connection from the fan to the light part, that part was like loose. It wasn't tightened properly, and the light, the remote that turns on the light and the fan, the battery in it died, and the light bulb died. I didn't feel like figuring out for the longest time how to get the fan apart so I could fix it. I went through the trouble of doing that all over the last month, yeah, instead of celebrating my queer identity, I fixed my ceiling fan over the course of June. And I would like to present the good news that I have officially fixed every part of my ceiling fan. The only downside a little bit is that if it's on the highest setting, it makes a noise that's kind of annoying. But if I leave the house and I want to leave it on the highest setting, I can do that because I won't be here to hear the noise. But it works perfectly fine otherwise. And there's a middle setting. There's like a low, medium, high setting. And the medium setting makes a noise, but a lot less noticeable of a noise. So I can have it on that in here. And so the air can circulate in my room properly now because that tall fan I can remove from my room. And that tall fan didn't circulate air around the whole room. It just kind of blew air into the room. So it just, when it was hot in here, it just kind of pushed hot air around, which was unfortunate. But now I also found a way to seal up. If you haven't been following my life for the last like several years, you wouldn't know that I have a curtain on the balcony I live on, or not balcony, but the what's it called, the loft I have in this apartment. I live on a loft that raises above the apartment. Is like an upstairs that is just this bedroom, my bathroom, my closet. That's where I live. Small room, but it's separated from the apartment by a curtain, not like a wall and a door. So I found a way to seal that off with clips better too. So the cool air stays in here, and it from the AC, and then it circulates well and around the room, and it's been better ever since. Very happy with that. That was a very adult accomplishment I had recently.
With the advent of summer coming to Arizona, I always have my ceiling fan on and a standing fan at the same time, just at all times, because even if I don't have my computer on or anything creating heat, I still have one wall that faces directly, it gets direct sunlight for the entire day, basically. So no matter what, it's always hot in this room. But with summer coming around, I have now had to crank the standing fan from 1 to 3. Although when we record this, I have it set to 0. So if I start making less sense by the end of these episodes, then you know why. It's because
you're suffering from heat stroke.
Yeah, because I never have my fan on. The standing, I have the ceiling fan on because it's silent, but I never have the standing fan on while we're recording this. So it does get hotter in this room the longer it goes on. And by the time we reach the end of it, I get heat sleepy. When it's warm, I get sleepy. So I'm just like, I'm out of it by the time it gets too warm in here.
Yeah, no, I also get heat sleepy, and it just makes me feel like gross and tired.
Makes me feel old
when I'm too hot. Yeah, it just feels like I'm aging faster. It's disgusting. But that's the other part I forgot to mention is the fact that I can have my fan on the middle setting and it can circulate air quickly around the room. And like I said, since it's sealed off better with the clips, the curtain, it keeps the cool air from the AC in here, and then it circulates. And since there's no noise, I can have it on while we record, and that was a big issue for me, is I didn't have a fan that was able to be on while we recorded. Unless my fan, some room arrangements I've had here, my fan was far enough away that I could get away with it, but it's a lot better now. I'm very happy about it.
I get scared by my ceiling fan time and again when too much dust builds up on the top and sets the blades off balance, because then it just starts making this rocking that is just like, it makes you think that the whole ceiling fan is going to fall out of the ceiling.
I mean, you should have been there when there was actually, you know what, that reminds me of what the problem with the actual fan part was. There was a screw that came out and was stuck in the fan. So if I turned the fan on, even when it did work and I had the battery in the remote, if I turned the fan on, it made a loud clunking noise. It didn't matter what setting it was on. So I had to figure out, the fan is in like 4 pieces. There's like the top, that's like the fan part. And hypothetically, if I didn't need the light part, I could take that completely off and just have the fan. I can take it off. It'll just look like open and ugly, like a tech thing on the ceiling. Yeah, I went to everyone's favorite American home store, Home Depot.
Ooh, Stan Menards.
And I went there and I found the light bulb and the battery I needed. I knew I needed to go to a store like that because of the specific light bulb this fan needed. And I picked it out. I actually pulled the light fixture part of the fan off on accident one day, and I couldn't figure out how to get it back on. That was an extremely frustrating day for me. That was during my 2 recent weeks of hell. I figured out how to get those pieces apart, because there's literally within the middle light fixture that's thicker, there's 2 parts within that. And then there's also the bottom part where the bottom piece that's the dome that covers the light and blurs it. So yeah. I had to figure out how to pull like all 4 of those pieces apart because you have to do that to individually tighten each part to each other. And having done that, I've never had more confidence in this ceiling fan. And also, it's just so much nicer. And the remote to control this fan is easier than the remote. Like the other remote has like 5 buttons and a screen for the standing fan, and this one just has like 4 buttons with like 1 tally, 2 tallies, 3 tallies, and a circle for off. This remote, funny enough, also has a setting for, it's got like a snowflake and a sun, so if I want air to circulate like and make it like colder in here, I can do that, or I can just have it cycle the air around normally.
Oh yeah, because the way that your fan spins, if it's spinning clockwise or counterclockwise, depending on the way the blades are facing, is whether it pushes or pulls air.
Right. And basically, yeah, I can just switch the way it's
If
going.
y'all aren't aware at home, that's a thing that you should be doing when the seasons change, is changing the direction of your fan because it's better for different seasons whether you push or pull.
Yes, remember to push and then to pull at the proper times.
When I push and you press.
Yeah, very nice personal life update.
I have a very unfortunate situation with my ceiling fan where I have color-changing LED bulbs in my ceiling fan. It's nice to be able to control the color temperature in here and the brightness to a legitimate degree. And also, they don't burn out every 2 months the way that my previous incandescent bulbs did. Because they're
that sounds like a skill issue, honestly.
I couldn't find any LED bulbs really for a while for this model, like this size of bulb. So like I was just stuck with incandescents that there's 3 different bulb slots on this thing, and one would burn out within a couple weeks every time. And so it's like I just got tired of like never having enough light because that one just kept burning out.
Right.
But the unfortunate thing is that all these LED bulbs that I have in here are slightly too big to put the glass casing back on. So my ceiling, the ceiling light is just raw dogging right now, no glass in between.
That's why I did research on the specific battery. The remote requires a tiny A23 battery, which I found out existed when I looked it up. And also this one required a specific, I looked inside the fan, and weirdly enough, I think I got like the exact same brand of light bulb, which I didn't mean to do, because it had the same labels on the bulb. The brand was like scrubbed off on the old bulb, but the font and numbers were exactly the same. But also I looked inside the fan and it said 75 watt max, but the bulb that was in there was 100 watt. And I know that it worked, so I don't know why that happened. I just bought a 75 watt because of it saying that. I didn't look at the light bulb first, so that was weird. But you know, if it burns out, I know how to take it apart. And like I'm super confident in keeping up with it now because I know how to take the entire thing apart, and I feel very happy about that.
If your ceiling fan, the light in there says 75 max, and you're putting 100 in there, all that means is that it's not going to be the full brightness of the bulb, but it'll last a little longer.
Right, but also I'm a big fan of not too bright light. Honestly, if I could find a bulb like this that could color change, or maybe it was like an amber light specifically, because in my lamps next to my TV, I have amber lights. I have like 2 lamps on each side of my TV, kind of like Minecraft doorway style, just like evenly on each side of the TV stand. I use my standing desk to hold up my TV since it's so fucking wide, and it actually perfectly fits like the 2 lamps on the outside, the 2 speakers next to the TV, and then the TV, and then I have my Roku under the TV, obviously, because it's tiny, and then the Switch dock is just like off to the left. It actually fits perfectly, because I don't have as much of a complex PC setup anymore, because this is, the only thing I've been doing lately is this show, which is another story for another day. But yeah, cool little update I just wanted to give, and something I'm very proud of. I remember I joined VC in the friend server and was like talking to them about my fan. I actually had to get the light dome off of the main piece. I had to you have to twist it to loosen it, but you can twist it all the way to the left or all the way to the right, and it doesn't exactly loosen properly. It just like kind of switches sides. But if you get it like in the middle of the twist, it has a little bit of give, and then I wedged it off with scissors. And I know this is the way I can do it because I've done it twice and it goes back on. So it just have to wedge it off with scissors, I guess.
Bizarre. Mine just works. Screws on and off in kind of a pain in the ass way because
it's supposed to screw on and off.
Oh, fun. I have to like feed like the chain for the light through like the bottom of one of the screw that holds it all in at the bottom that has like the main light power on and off. So I have to fucking push rope.
Yeah, I just have to make sure the cord coming down from the fan through the center that connects to the light, I just have to make sure it goes through this specific cover hole it's supposed to be in, so it doesn't interfere with the fitting of the bottom piece onto the fan base. But yeah, I looked up videos and stuff. Thankfully, it was a project at night that I just it was one of those things that I just had insomnia OCD over. I was not going to be able to sleep until I figured it out. And thankfully, it only took me 25 minutes to figure it out. I looked up videos and those failed me, so I just started wedging it with scissors and it worked.
Fix your ceiling fan in 25 minutes or less.
Call Geico and we'll give you 15% of fan insurance in 15 minutes or less. This ceiling fan that I have has been very slept on. I could have done this a year ago, but I'm glad I did it now. It felt rewarding to build up all that time of not having it and then to finally accomplish it, because my sister helped me a little bit. She gave me the idea for the scissor wedging, and then to be able to figure the rest out myself was very satisfying. If you have accomplished a project like that recently in your personal life or figured out something cool, let us know in the comments somewhere. If you can comment. I think you can comment on Spotify.
We have to leave a Q&A thing open for people to send in stuff.
Oh, we should do that.
Look for the question box on Spotify or in the comments on YouTube. What's a project that you did recently that you're proud of?
And if you're on Apple Podcasts, go fuck yourself.
You should just fucking die, honestly.
No, kidding. Just go to YouTube, dumbass.
Gonna say some Ric Flair words.
I was telling Mia about the segment where Ric Flair told a female wrestler in 2016 to KYS. I don't know. I can't remember who he said it to. I think it was Alexa Bliss or somebody, but it was wild. Thankfully, I don't think it got aired on live TV, but it was crazy.
Ric Flair grew up in the COD lobbies.
True. Man had the oldest Xbox known to man.
Imagine we find out after all these years.
Literally, because he's so old.
Imagine we find out after all these years it's Ric Flair in that video. Who's like, you have Uno!
Ric Flair's like a caveman. He had the Ooga box.
Oh, I saw a great thing recently. I think it was Stone Cold Steve Austin that...
I gotta run to the bathroom while you talk about this.
Somebody asked him in the 2000s or something, sometime quite a long time ago. They asked him what his favorite video game was, and he was like, I don't have time for these video games. I spend my time doing real things, fighting men in the ring. You know, none of these lame video game whatever. And that's juxtaposed with a picture of him holding a Nintendo Switch sometime recently. I think he was playing Breath of the Wild or something like that. It was just a funny contrast. Stone Cold Steve Austin being like, no time for these video games. And now just actually him smiling, holding a Switch. Different times.
All right, freaks, I'm back. Sorry about my bathroom break. The coffee and water were just fighting in my bladder. I needed to get them out.
There were ghosts in your bladder. You call the Ghostbusters. They extract them.
I think it's funny that I found a Reddit post on r/WWE about the results just because it was easy to look at. And they, the way they described, just real quick, we obviously haven't gotten to talking about this match yet, but our World Heavyweight Champion Damian Priest defends against Seth frickin' Rollins and Drew McIntyre. Triple threat match, in parentheses, due to Drew cash-in attempt, thwarted by CM Punk interference. So they copied the thwarted title.
Yeah. That's been sticking in our minds since last night. They're saying thwarted by CM Punk.
Had a graphic on the screen, yeah. It was just so funny.
It's so cartoony.
Yeah, they did have a cool, comic book style theming to the PLE, but...
Yes.
Anyway, I guess if we're ready to move on to the next match, was the Intercontinental Championship, Sami Zayn defending against Braun Breaker, which was a match that made me believe in Braun Breaker a lot more than I did before. I hadn't really paid attention to him, but his performance in that match was stellar. I was actually very impressed.
Yes, I'll say this is something that we were watching with Chandler, and something that I think Chandler and I agreed on is that Sami Zayn versus Braun Breaker is probably the cleanest match of the night. It was just the 1v1, everything seemed to go according to plan. It was just a very solid block.
Absolutely. It was just good. It was just a solid match, especially as a 1v1. And it was the only 1v1 of the night. It definitely carried that placement in the PLE, that it was the only one-on-one match.
Yes, and it was very nice to have a match that was interesting for reasons outside of current story, because the current story is a little
Right.
bit messy at the moment. I know I was slurping it off the past couple weeks, and I'm like, oh my god, Triple H has been doing this story so well. It's so beautifully paced. It's so easy to follow. And that all changed during the Money in the Bank.
And then one referee came along.
So during this fight, Sami Zayn and Braun Breaker, it was very interesting that it's like, I didn't know who was going to win from the start of that because they were in Toronto. It seemed like, of course, they can't make Sami Zayn lose in Canada. So it was unlikely they were going to do that. But at the same time, like, Braun Breaker is a fucking huge man. And so, like, just in physicality, it's like, how does Sami Zayn beat Brock Baker?
Brock Lesnar.
Braun Breaker. And
Brock Nestor.
it was all around. It was just a pretty impressive fight. It was a good show from both of them. Braun showed off some good moves. He did a fucking Hurricane Rana. That was the cleanest execution.
Like the cleanest.
Literally
shit,
fucking like frame perfect Hurricane Rana.
Like, I don't know if in the last 20 years anyone has ever made a Hurricane Rana look like cleaner than a baby's bottom. It was fucking crazy. It was like the squeakiest clean Hurricane Rana I've ever seen. And I used to be a massive Rey Mysterio obsessive wrestling fan. Don't get me wrong, Rey Mysterio's way better at what he does than most people, but damn, to see like a Goldberg ripoff do like that. Like, his athleticism is definitely what sets him apart from somebody like Goldberg. Because last time we saw Goldberg wrestle, the last, few years of his career, it was just not good. It just wasn't good. That's kind of the thing right now, though. Braun Breaker's been, like, the Goldberg of today-ish, and Chad Gable's been, like, the Kurt Angle of today, even sporting the jumpsuit and the ankle lock.
Oh yeah. During the ladder match, there was after Chad Gable got hype, he took off the straps. That the standard hype.
Right.
But then I think LA Knight grabbed him off of the ladder by his pants, and we got about half a second of Gable crack.
Yeah, and for some reason, WWE cameramen are so bad at avoiding camera shots that show wrestlers fixing their underwear.
Oh yeah,
It's happened so many times. And they always do it.
Yeah, Chad Gable was on the ground after LA Knight threw him off the ladder. I think it was LA Knight. After he was thrown off the ladder, he was in the corner, and he was just laying there for like a minute, just fixing his pants.
Actually, I redistribute my fault of that. It is just like the production team. Like, they have so many cameras, so much access to so many cameras. They could just switch off of that camera, but it's always like the under the corner shot of whoever's doing that so that you can see so clearly they're trying to fix their tights.
Yeah. Oh, also something that was weird with both the Sami Zayn fight and also the first Money in the Bank. Jay Uso and Sami Zayn both showing moves that I don't think either of them had really done before last night. Like, Sami Zayn especially was showing off new tech. Like, he was doing stuff that he hadn't done. It was like,
he had done like two moves he had never done that I like heard because I have wireless headphones. I went to the bathroom while they were watching it, and then they were like, Sami Zayn with the senton and stuff like that, and I didn't even see that stuff.
Yeah, but you came back and were like, did they say Sami Zayn did this?
Yeah, I was like, did Sami Zayn do a senton bomb?
I don't know what we're gonna see from Sami. I guess in closing thoughts of that match of Intercontinental. Both of them were very technically impressive, and it was a very satisfying win from Sami Zayn because it was so technical that it seemed like it was justified for him to beat somebody that was so big.
Closing shift thoughts.
Closing shift thoughts, number 13. So many YouTubers used to do like a deep thoughts.
Well, that was in the Your Grammar Sucks 500? Your Grammar Sucks 100? Oh, it was just 100, I guess. But he had that Deep Thoughts with Markiplier.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that's so... that never comes to mind, but that when you said that, I immediately knew, because I watched that. I didn't even know NSP was in that until I'd already been fan of them for a while.
Oh, I just remembered a thing. Something I saw recently that warmed my little heart. At the end of Game Grump's playthrough of RZ, which is that game that it's very much inspired by the Zelda CDI games, and it's very good. It very much keeps the same vibe of the original, and it's like actually good and fun, and I love it. But they were going through the credits of that game, and Aaron pointed out, he's like, Vinny Vinesauce, because he voices the frog in that game. And Dan recognized him and gave a shout out to Red Vox, and I was like, oh my god, my faves. They appreciate one another. Like it was
cool.
It was a very cool thing to see Dan on Game Grumps giving a shout to Red Vox and telling Aaron about Red Vox. And I'm like, yes, please tell people about this band. It's cool and I love it. And it's so cool that like that's there, that they acknowledge it.
Acknowledge your tribal chief.
Acknowledge your Red Vox.
It's hard for me not to say your tribal chief whenever I say the word acknowledge now.
Sir, do you acknowledge the charges brought against you by the court?
Do you acknowledge him, sir?
Do you feel him?
Do you feel him, sir? So I guess to move on, which is crazy, I believe before the World Heavyweight Championship match was John Cena, who came out to announce his farewell tour in 2025, that he will be ending his in-ring career at WrestleMania 41, which is cool.
He's on that Germa soft retirement where he says like that's going to be the end of him in the ring, but he's not going to be completely uninvolved.
Right.
Like from the way that it sounds, he's like he was very tight-lipped about all of it. Didn't say a lot about what the actual plan is beyond his retirement, like cuz he said that Royal Rumble, like the next Royal Rumble is going to be his last. The next WrestleMania is going to be his last WrestleMania, but he's...
The Elimination Chamber as well.
Elimination Chamber, yes. But he's not going to be completely properly done until December of 2025. So anything that happens beyond that point, we don't know. There's no knowing what his level of involvement is going to be. If maybe he's just not going to be a wrestler, but maybe he might still be present within the company to some degree. Don't know. Remains to be seen. And he is very keen on not telling us.
And with WWE coming to Netflix and being uncensored and all, I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen at all. Because Triple H has confirmed that WWE on Netflix will be uncensored.
Which, not like it matters much the way that it was last night.
Yeah, Drew McIntyre losing his entire shit.
There was only one thing in the entirety that was censored, and it was during Drew McIntyre's outbreak at the very end of it. But
at the post show, yeah.
Yeah, throughout the entirety of the matches, there was no censorship happening. There was what is disputed between us of whether or not, what's his name? The other guy that was on commentary?
Wade Barrett?
No, not on post show during the match.
Oh, do you mean I believe you're talking about when Corey Graves said, what the fuck or something?
Yeah, it very much sounded like he said something like this happening after the Bloodline match. It sounded like he exclaimed, what the fuck? But it is disputed of whether he said that or what about the fact.
I do see that being more realistic, though, because it sounded like an A sound when he said the F word he said.
It sounded more like an E sound to me. Like he was kind of in between.
I think he was just freaking out, honestly. I think that's why it sounded like a bunch of different shit.
It was a weird and crazy moment, but then very much uncensored, clear as day during
Michael Cole.
during the match between, well, I guess we can get to it because that's the next match on the docket, right?
The World Heavyweight Championship match. Yes, that started out as just I guess that was a one-on-one at first. Sami Zayn and Braun Breaker being the only one that was a one-on-one that stayed like that and ended normally. Damian Priest defending against Seth freaking Rollins for the stakes that Damian Priest would lead the Judgment Day if he lost. Seth Rollins would never challenge for the championship again as long as Damian Priest was champion if he lost. And then all hell broke loose.
All hell did break loose. It was a pretty normal fight for the most of it, except for the entirety of the fight. They knew that Drew McIntyre won the Money in the Bank, and they knew that Drew had said that he would cash it in immediately if he won it. So the entire match, both of them were just looking up the runway, looking over their shoulder. They were both paranoid as hell, and they were more worn out in a couple minutes of wrestling from the amount of paranoia than you would get at the end of, than what was there at the end of the Money in the Bank. Like they were, I think like this self-destructive worry was going on where they were just like, they looked like they'd been through war after only such a short time because of just the fear of it.
Right.
And they were right to fear, but that fear came in a really weird way.
Well, Drew McIntyre came out, his music hit, he came down, he cashed in immediately. He didn't even like have second thoughts about it. and he made it a triple threat match, which I was surprised by a little bit. But last time somebody cashed in at WrestleMania, ironically, was Seth Rollins, and he also made it a triple threat at the end of the 1v1 between Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns at the time. Drew McIntyre came out. He started hauling ass. He got like clotheslined by Damian Priest. He still Claymored him though, and he was like about to go for the pin. But then who comes in to thwart his plans? But CM Punk, and starts coming in and giving Drew shit, beating the fuck out of him. Drew gets out of the ring to run away, and then CM Punk clotheslines him over into the timekeepers station and just starts hitting him with a chair, hits him with a chair in the back like 5 times.
They accidentally hit a lady in the process.
Yes, and I'm not surprised she was fearful for her life. So, and then eventually they got back in the ring, and CM Punk took the title and hit Drew in the head with it. And then Damian Priest ended up winning the match because of that interference, which does mean that the men's Money in the Bank contract was wasted for an entire year, which you could argue happens every time somebody cashes in same night, but the fact that nobody got clarity on Drew's thing, I forgot to mention. So
yeah, the part that makes it weird.
Yeah, before Drew came out, Seth Rollins went to pin Damian Priest, and the referee, for some reason, Paul Levesque himself even calling this out later in the press conference as weird, the referee called a 2 count, and Damian Priest's shoulder did not even move a muscle. It was on the mat for the 3 count. Seth Rollins won, basically. But the referee called a 2 count because seemingly the tech team or Drew McIntyre or somebody missed their cue. And we theorized that it was supposed to be 1, 2, and then Drew McIntyre's music hit and the referee got distracted or something like that. And so he just called a 2 count, even though Damian Priest did not kick out whatsoever. So from that point on, everything was just weird and confusing. And then CM Punk showed up and started thwarting and all sorts of shit.
Yeah, that's what made it weird when Drew McIntyre walked out and they said that it was a triple threat. And you were like, what do you mean it's a triple threat? One of them just got out. It's like they just determined a winner, but then they just like everybody kind of stood around confused for a minute until Drew McIntyre got to the ring. Like Seth looked confused, Damian looked confused. Everybody was like, what the fuck just happened? What do we do now? Because they were like, do we announce a winner for whatever this match is? And then Drew McIntyre comes in to save the day and just run distraction, basically. Just like, forget about everything. No winner was called. Ignore that. Triple threat now.
Yeah, the referee just knew the spot and just committed to it hard.
That match is by far the most notable thing that happened in the Money in the Bank for the purposes of it being very confusing in the moment of that botch, just bringing a lot of weird confusion. But also, now we have these unfinished storylines, these untethered stories. And this is why I said, like, this is why I mentioned how much I was slobbing Triple H's knob for how amazing the storytelling and how well built up it's all been up to this point. It's getting really confusing because now we have beef with Seth Rollins and CM Punk. We have beef with Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. Beef with Damian Priest and CM Punk. Like everybody in the ring has some problem with CM Punk that just happened. And it's been like half a year basically building up that like the CM Punk and Drew McIntyre drama, and we still haven't seen a conclusion of it. We're hoping that soon enough CM Punk will be medically cleared and they can finally squash this beef happening with him and Drew McIntyre. Cause like there's like I think I said it as like CM Punk has like 30 fires to go put out.
That's the other thing too, is it's not just all of them and CM Punk. They all are supposed to have like beef with each other too. Like there was like Drew McIntyre finds a new person to hate every time CM Punk leaves for a night, but still holds his CM Punk hatred. And then like Seth and Damian had a problem with each other. Seth and Drew had a problem with each other. Damian and Drew had a problem with each other. Seth already had a problem with CM Punk. Drew McIntyre already had a problem with CM Punk. Now Damian Priest has a problem with CM Punk. And the whole moral of the match I think we were supposed to get out of it was that Damian Priest can't win without assistance, and CM Punk proved that. Even though the Judgment Day didn't interfere, he still only won because of interference.
And we were expecting it. We were waiting for the Judgment Day to come in.
I was waiting for... I expected Finn Balor to turn on Damian Priest and cost him the championship, but nothing remotely like that happened, and instead I was left... It was just, you don't always leave a PLE with more questions than answers.
And something that we really did not expect to happen in the way that it did, because we were talking about this before the Money in the Bank. I was like, whatever they do with Drew McIntyre here, if he doesn't win the heavyweight championship, he gets screwed again. Then it's like, that's actual fucking like supervillain arc has to be coming in after, because now Drew McIntyre has been double screwed by CM Punk out of the heavyweight title.
Right.
It's like, it's weird that like I think it's just because CM Punk hasn't been cleared yet. If he hadn't been injured in the Royal Rumble, I think that we would have already seen the end of everything going on with Drew McIntyre right now. This beef would have been squashed months ago, but because it all had to be put on delay for medical leave, I imagine they had these other storylines planned with Drew McIntyre and everybody else and CM Punk and everybody else, but they just couldn't deal with the Drew McIntyre CM Punk drama in time. And so I was saying during the match, it's like, this is going to take months to untangle what's happening between just this group here.
I think, honestly, I'm thinking about it now, and I think this is a way they are putting CM Punk at the top of the anti-hero list. Like, Cody had his time of being like the top guy. I think they're building CM Punk up to be a big deal again in like a way that only he could, which is being a saboteur.
Yeah. He has a huge target painted on his back right now from Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, and Damian Priest, all for different reasons. Drew McIntyre just fucking hating him. Seth Rollins mad that he interfered and took away his title.
Right.
And Damian Priest mad that CM Punk stole his glory.
And literally, even before like the pipe bomb promo, he cost John Cena a match. Like, just what he does.
He's making a lot of enemies, but I don't know how any of that is going to resolve, because all of those enemies are also enemies.
No flowers at the funeral of an anti-hero. It's just messy.
It gets even messier with the next match.
Yeah, what was the next match?
Bloodline.
No. Next match was the women's Money in the Bank.
I thought that was last.
The main event was the tag team match. That's why it was underwhelming, and we talked about it. So to move on, I guess, to that match, the women's Money in the Bank involved. So it was Zoe Stark, Io Sky, Tiffany Stratton, Naomi, Lyra Valkyria, and Chelsea Green. It was those 6 women. There were the kind of like top popularity picks to win: Tiffany Stratton, Naomi, and Chelsea Green. Chelsea Green came close a couple of times to winning, and it was funny. Every woman exited the ring immediately except for except for Chelsea Green.
Yeah, they set up this thing in the pre-show of her being afraid of heights.
Yeah. It like balanced comedy and action pretty well, that match. And there were arguably more brutal spots in that match than there were in the men's one.
Absolutely.
If not just as brutal. And Tiffany Stratton ended up winning. It ended up being indeed Tiffy time.
Tiffy time!
Which was cool, because Tiffany Stratton is not a bad winner. She actually is very popular. And I can't wait to see how she bedazzles the Money in the Bank briefcase, to be honest, because she's the only one that's going to have one all year. So
that match was the most brutal of the entire night, because it was already bad enough earlier with the male wrestlers not going through the ladders and just bouncing off and getting injured. So if those big men weren't breaking through the ladders, how do you think it was for the female wrestlers? It was even worse for them. Just like
literally,
there was a landing that happened. Io Sky definitely got hurt, like in her hip, it seems. I don't know if it was like,
oh yeah,
if it was in like maybe just like the upper part of her leg, or if it was just straight on like the fucking tailbone, but she landed real bad on the ladder, and you could tell like there were people I saw like off to the side, the refs, not like, like the medical refs, like the emergency refs that were like, I saw them on mic just being like, we gotta fucking check on Io Sky like right now. Like there were a couple moments throughout that, and it was that same ref later when Chelsea Green, she was so close to taking the Money in the Bank when she got fucking sent from the top of the ladder all the way out of the ring onto 2 different tables. And just
outside of the ring from the top of a ladder.
Just like launched onto that. That was a crazy stunt. and I'm glad she's okay. That looked like it could have gone south real fucking easy, the way that a lot of the rest of the match had been, with other people very seemingly getting injured in legitimate ways. Like, there was, you know something we didn't mention in the men's match, I think. Or no, it was during the men's match, Chad Gable suplexing LA Knight, I think it was, over the rope onto a ladder and just like barely clearing his head to not like smash LA Knight's head against the ladder. But during Sami Zayn and Braun Breaker, there were a couple jumps that Sami did where like Braun was very much on the catches, and if he had been like a misstep out of place, it would have been Sami's brain into the fucking concrete. Like it was a real stressful night for injuries, and I think most of those did come from the women's Money in the Bank.
Yeah, most times they showed Michael Cole's react cam. He was kind of shielding his eyes from the show because it was so brutal. Definitely one of the most intense PLEs in a while.
Yeah, there was, I think, like basically every stunt, every landing that happened during the women's Money in the Bank, nothing seemed like it was particularly nice to them. None of the ladders, the mats, all of it was just like, it was just wrong landing after wrong landing, just real rough. And speaking, I didn't even fucking mention in the men's Money in the Bank, Chad Gable straight up like Gibby falling from the hook all the way down to the stage and like landing on his nose.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, he like, yeah. No, he fucking, I can't even believe he got up as fast as he did.
It was he got up super fast from that and then got fucking speared.
Yeah, man lost where he was.
This is why he was unexpected MVP of that match. He was fucking crazy with his like, what was it, triple or quadruple suplex spree that he went on, and then that fall into this like straight up from that. Like I don't know how he does it.
Right.
And also just Chad Gable being so much shorter than all the other wrestlers in that ring and still like, you know how hard it is to suplex somebody who's like your same size. Suplexing somebody who's taller than you is like a work of physics.
Yeah. That's why he's who he is. That's why he's him, because he knows what he is capable of and how to accomplish it.
So impressive.
It's beautiful. That's why wrestling is art.
Any more thoughts on the women's Money in the Bank?
I don't think so.
Then we move into the final event of the night.
The Bloodline fighting Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, and Kevin Owens. Yes, of course.
Yes. What a weird match that was.
It was odd. It ended in Solo pinning Cody for the 3 count. Which is
fucking insane.
An interesting ending, but more interesting just the way the Bloodline was put over, because if they didn't put this Bloodline over, they would lose like all credibility. That would be like some John Cena political stroke shit from like 15 years ago. He would do something like that, but that's just how they do it now.
I think that this is my thoughts on the match and why it's so weird and how I think they should have gone about it. It's no secret that Solo Sikoa is probably the most hated man in America right now. Trying to take the place of Roman Reigns in his absence, being the head of the table, while also not having any reputation to be doing so. Like, there's not a single ounce of respect for Solo Sikoa amongst really like the fans or any other wrestlers.
Right.
That's like there's not any reason to take him seriously because he went on a massive losing streak before all this and now is trying to like basically act like he's the head of everything and like super tough and cool. But everybody sees through it. There's not a single person like in this illusion. They're clearly trying to build up some kind of storyline with the Bloodline, and it will probably amount in the return of Roman Reigns coming back and taking back his place. But for that to have any weight, any build up, that means that there has to be some kind of respect towards Solo Sikoa, which is just weird and unlikely because of the track record he's had. So he kind of, like, the Bloodline had to win this, or else there'd be no reason to care about anything happening with them right now, because that's a huge thing. But I think they did it in a really weird way, and I think it's a huge misstep to do that to Cody Rhodes. Like, if they were going to pin anybody in that match, because Cody Rhodes was like destroying for most of the match. Of course, he was just like, single-handedly taking down everybody else, everybody in the bloodline who's coming in, because he's, Universal Champion Cody Rhodes. And so he was doing really good, and it seemed like he was favored to win until the ref got knocked out.
Yeah.
And then all hell broke loose, and he got, triple teamed by the bloodline. And I think this match wouldn't be so weird. I think they could have accomplished what they wanted to do of putting some respect on the bloodline, putting some respect on Solo Sikoa by giving them a win against a pretty formidable opponent. I think that they should have done the pin on Randy. I think Randy is an imposing figure. I think he's he's seen as very strong, very competent. He's a winner. He's a real winner, but he's not the Universal Champion. So it's a lot more realistic for them to beat Randy than it is for them to beat Universal Champion Cody Rhodes. Like, I don't know why they would do that. They kind of like take a chunk out of Cody's reputation to try and give it to Solo by having him take the pin.
Right.
It seems like a misstep for somebody who's still so freshly the champion, who just finished the story, that they're already portraying him as weak, basically, losing to fucking Solo. Like, nobody loses to Solo.
I mean, that's not necessarily true. John Cena put Solo over last year, so it just depends. And I mean, this is also TBD. Like, this all just happened, so we'll see where all of it goes when Raw and SmackDown happen this week. But that's just what that's just where we're left right now. A lot of questions, a lot of confusion, and we'll just have to, like I said, see what happens.
We're at least pretty confident in two things. That they are very likely to announce very soon that CM Punk is medically cleared.
Yes.
And whatever next thing that Seth Rollins speaks at is probably also going to be about CM Punk. Because CM Punk, during his press conference in the post-show, he was asked about Seth Rollins and their interaction in the match and the anger there. And he dismissed that question. It does seem that in this situation between Seth Rollins and CM Punk, it is going to be on Seth Rollins to make the first move.
It's interesting because they've already mega buried Drew, so it's just I don't know, almost as if they were gonna form like the CM Punk hate alliance. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. Talking about it has almost made me more confused than I was last night.
When you really start getting into the weeds of it, it's like I think it's just primarily like the bloodline stuff. We know that, like, that's kind of still on its set path. There's some weird steps that happen within that can be a little tricky to follow. But all around that storyline, the bloodline, seems to be pretty straightforward in what's happening. We just have to wait for information to come out. We have to wait for more reveals.
Right.
If we're ever going to see Roman. We're just kind of still waiting on that. We can put bloodline on the sort of back burner right now. It's really primarily the heavyweight mess that is the biggest confusion.
Right.
I pray to God that they wrap up at least 70% of that within the next couple months. I don't think my brain could take any more of it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Oh, and we didn't mention when we talked about the heavyweight match of how bad the censorship was throughout the entire event, because when CM Punk came out to sabotage Drew again, Michael Cole shouted very clear over the mic, "Oh shit, it's CM Punk!"
Yeah, that was great.
I'm excited to get more of that when it comes to Raw.
Yeah, when WWE's on Netflix, it's going to lose a lot of the wheels it had and the hinges, and the walls are coming down.
You were saying that's going to be good with Michael Cole and Dominic Mysterio when it's uncensored.
I thought it would be funny just for Michael Cole how much he hates Dominic to just be like, this kid is just a dick. Fuck this guy.
I hope that he can just achieve next level hater.
I would love it. It'd be my favorite thing ever. Michael Cole finally be like, I can finally air my grievances. Is that where we wrap up our episode of covering Money in the Bank?
Yeah, I think that covers the events pretty solidly. If you have any closing thoughts on it?
Not really. Interesting event. Interested to see where all of it goes. That's about it. We hope you also enjoyed Money in the Bank as much as we did.
R.I.P. John Cena.
R.I.P. John Cena. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.